Hi and welcome to Experience Week. We're excited to have you with us today. This presentation is titled CX in 2020 by Pat Gibbons and Leslie Pagel from Walker. Before we jump into content, some quick housekeeping items. First, feel free to share this event with your colleagues. It's not too late to register. Let others know you're watching by tweeting at Qualtrics with hashtag Experience Week, and all today's content will be available on demand for you to enjoy. The time is now yours, Pat.
Great, thank you, and thank Qualtrics for hosting us and inviting us to participate. A little bit of background as we get started. Walker is actually a brand new partner of Qualtrics. We're excited about that. Walker is a customer experience consulting firm with a lot of great background. We're essentially the professional services side of customer experience, and we're teaming up with Qualtrics and their platform to offer kind of the best of both worlds. This great technology platform with kind of the white glove service that we typically provide to our clients. And one of the things that is a benefit to our clients and really to the industry is some studies that we publish. And every year we try to pick the most timely topics and we research them thoroughly, and then we publish new, fresh research on the topics. And by far, the topic that has caught most people's attention is this idea of the future of customer experience, or our report titled Customers 2020. And we published that report actually way back in 2013. Way back is kind of a relative term, but as we get closer and closer to 2020, it seemed to make sense to do a progress report. Now, a lot of the work we do is with business-to-business firms, typically large global business-to-business firms. But there are lessons in this report for both B2B companies as well as B2C companies, and we'll give you some examples along the way. But first, let me reflect a bit on 2013. Like I kind of joked earlier, it's only a few years ago, but if you stop and think about it, so much has changed. So here are a few happening in 2013. Think about the ride-sharing service, what some people call the other ride-sharing service, Lyft. They were just getting off the ground in 2013. They went to 18 cities. Now they have services in 300 cities. Now here's a groundbreaking happening from 2013. The word selfie was added to the dictionary. How about that? On a much more serious note, sometimes when we think of history, we think of the tragedies that go along with it. And 2013 was not without an exception, and that was the Boston Marathon bombings, which we'll all recall, and we will for many, many years. And on a lighter note, the movie Frozen came out in 2013. So that probably means the song Let It Go will be like going through my head all afternoon, but regardless. So those were some of the things that took place in 2013. A lot has changed, and if you, the listeners, are like most of our audience, I would say a third of you at least either are in a new job, have moved to a new location, or both. I mean, that's how much change goes on in our life and in our society. And in 2013 is when we developed the report Customers 2020. And, I think it is fair to say that we broke some new ground with this report. We had thousands of people download this report, and as well, it was featured in a lot of different media outlets. In particular, this simple chart seemed to capture most people's attention. And what it is simply saying is that customer experience is outpacing traditional differentiators like product and price. And prompted by that, we saw tweets like this: customer experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator by 2020. So looking back, today we're talking about a new report. And by the way, we will provide you a link at the end of this webcast, and by using a discount code, you'll be able to get a complimentary copy of this report. So let's get started. Leslie, tell us a little bit of background on how we conducted this report.
Great. This report was built around 3 phases of research. Our first phase was our advisory panel. The panel was comprised of customer experience leaders from 6 firms. And the advisors were really valuable in terms of guiding the research design, sharing their thoughts and hypotheses for the future. They also weighed in after the data was gathered, helping us synthesize the information. The second stage included in-depth interviews with business leaders who are engaged in the customer experience strategy. This helped further shape the hypotheses and gave us valuable insight into what companies are doing to prepare for the future. The third and final step was a quantitative survey that was designed to measure progress from the initial customers' 2020 research and validate the insights collected from the advisors in the in-depth interviews. With the help of Customer Think, Convince and Convert, and the Customer Experience Professionals Association, we gathered input from over 400 customer experience leaders and influencers.
We gathered this information, we dissected it, we debated it, and we begin our findings with a conundrum. Okay, now when I think of conundrums, I sort of think of the silly side of conundrums, like things like, why do they call them apartments when they're all together? Or if nothing sticks to Teflon, how do they stick the Teflon to the pan? Or why is there an expiration date on sour cream? Okay, that one you have to let sit for a second before you get it. But anyway, the conundrum in customer experience is much more serious. And it is this. Complexity in our world, in our businesses, is here to stay. And you add to that the consumer experiences, which are making a huge impression on us. And the question, the conundrum becomes, how do companies meet the rapidly changing needs of customers? Now, let me pick this apart for a second. Complexity, meaning new technology, the rapid pace, evolving products, competition, all that stuff is more intense than ever. And it's making the interactions with our customers more intricate than ever. But here's the irony. This is at a time where customers want things to be simple. But the reality is to make things simple, to give them overnight delivery or same-day delivery or one-click ordering, it's pretty complex. It's hard. And the consumer experiences, think about Amazon setting the bar for these things. It sets a high bar for business-to-consumer companies, but in particular for business-to-business companies.
So the good news is, through this research, we have the report card of how companies are doing on preparing for the future. But I hate to say it, the spoiler alert is the results aren't very good. Like we saw in 2013, 3 clear customer expectations emerged: personalization, ease, and speed. We'll take a look at each one of these and consider the influences that B2C is having and take a look at what B2B companies are doing. First, personalization. This is about making each customer feel like we know them, no matter what part of the company they contact. Prolific personalization in B2C no doubt shapes what B2B customers want. Historically, B2B has relied on account teams to make customers feel like the whole company knows them. And while the relationship with the account manager is great, today's customers interact with a broader group of people, technologies, and processes. Let's take a look at the consumer influence around personalization. I suspect you've seen this in action. Starbucks asks us for our name and writes it on the cup. Now, some might think this is so they can get the right order to the right person, but that's not the case. Starbucks has some of the most sophisticated ordering systems around. They don't need to write our name on the cup. I suspect they do this because we react emotionally when we hear our names, especially when it's followed by a cup of Starbucks coffee. Now, recently I learned that some Starbucks are leveraging this even further. sometimes they intentionally misspell our names in kind of outrageous ways. I think the best this. Rachel. Ray. Chill. What does Rachel do? She takes a picture and shares it with her friends. It's brilliant. What are some ways B2B is personalizing the customer experience? One firm we work with leverages the power of data and analytics to identify unique customer needs. Armed with a wealth of detail about customers, which in today's age, who isn't, this company partnered with Walker to develop a customer needs-based segmentation model. This segmentation approach identified the unique needs and expectations for groups of customers. They used this insight to develop specific actions, some of which included how they allocated resources, customer messaging, and marketing to personalize the customer interaction. They implemented some of these actions in some of the test markets, and the results that they saw were impressive. The test markets that implemented the tailored approach have seen significant increases in sales combined with a lower cost to serve. Through this research, we asked what customer expectations were like 3 years ago, what are they like today, and how are they likely to look in the year 2020. And as you can see, expectations for personalization continue to increase. In fact, among the 3 expectations that we'll look at today, the expectation for personalization will increase the most between now and the year 2020.
The second area is ease, and this relates to minimal steps, strong guidance, intuitive steps, and clarity for the customer. When you think of examples today, just think about how easy things have become. You can order just about anything online when you go shopping. You can get directions or even avoid traffic. You can make reservations or order food to be delivered. You can turn your appliances on and off. You can even check on your pet, all by picking up your phone. That's how easy things have become. So what about in the B2B world? Are there B2B companies that are making things easier for their customers? Well, our research is showing that they're trying, and here's an example of one that has been successful. We work with a large technology firm, and several years ago, they really took notice of ease of doing business because they found that it was the primary driver of customer loyalty and retention for their company. And that is something we see quite often among business-to-business firms. So knowing this, they said, let's really dig into this and let's figure out what are the areas that are most important that we have to make really easy for our customers. It became a company-wide priority, and the real area that they focused on the most was transitioning to online support. Their customers were frustrated with getting technical support from a variety of different sources. They wanted to be able to do it themselves, so they really took the time to develop the right interface to make it intuitive and easy for people to get the kind of online support that they needed. No big surprise. Better customer experience, better ratings. The thing that may have been a bit of a surprise is how much they saved. Millions and millions of dollars. So this is a win-win for everybody. The customer, the company, their channels, etc. The trends that Leslie mentioned for personalization hold true for ease as well. And actually, this lines up perfectly with research that we've done on this very topic. Companies have recognized, hey, this is an issue. We need to make it easier for our customers. And when we ask them, hey, are you working on it? Many of them say, yes, we have initiatives in place. But when we ask, hey, how effective are those? They're just okay. Not everyone is succeeding. It's a pretty hard task.
Customers also want speed. Everything seems to be at our fingertips these days. We've grown a bit impatient and don't really want to wait for anything. Let's consider some B2C examples. Silver car, you avoid waiting in lines, interacting with sales reps. You simply order the car on your phone and use your phone to get into the car. Surf Air, this is a subscription-based airline in California. You pay a monthly fee and fly as often as you want. There's no TSA, no crowded airports, no waiting. Uber has increased the speed and decreased the cost of getting around. And Amazon Go, there's no more waiting in lines at the grocery store. So what can B2B companies do? One telecom company that we work with offers hardware and software solutions that can sometimes lead to support interactions. They receive thousands of support calls each month, and in the past few years, they've gotten really good at following up on cases where customers indicate that the support they received wasn't great. They rectify these situations and make the customer happier than they were before. But recently, we've been working with their support management team to identify potential issues that could have easily gone undetected, resulting in poor support experience. We created what we call a proactive alert to notify the organization that there might be a customer issue. The customer didn't tell us there was an issue. We're predicting the likelihood of an issue. And in in 4 months of implementing this approach, the results that they saw were clear. The group that is getting the proactive alerts were impressed with the follow-up and are more likely to express favorable support impressions. Like we saw for personalization and ease, expectations for speed are expected to continue to increase. I mentioned there's a report card, so here it is. In our study, we asked how effective companies are at meeting these customer expectations today. And the news isn't great. Less than 10% consider their company very effective. And perhaps worse, hovering around a third of the responses indicate their company isn't effective at all. So we have our work cut out for us. Time is not on our side.
So it's time for change. In fact, it's time for some transformative change. You know, we're going to highlight 5 different areas, 5 different avenues to create this change. And I'll tell you up front, they're not easy. But at this point, we really feel like some sweeping change is what's necessary. So the first area is that we suggest a focus on culture. That is, developing a customer-committed culture. Now, this is an area that we've seen customer experience professionals, really anybody involved with customer experience, has probably realized, I can't do this on my own. I can come up with all the strategies, I can collect the right information from our customers, I can even put some good teams together, but overall, our entire organization has to be committed to delivering excellent customer experiences. Now, the good news here is when we ask customer experience professionals the areas that they're focused on, this was at the top of the list. So that's good. They've realized it and they are working on it. The not so good news is it's not clear that they have a good framework for really shifting their culture. And we've taken notice of that. That's one of the areas of our newest product lines where we've developed a solution called Culture Shift, and it's designed to do just that, go through a step-by-step iteration to develop and shift the culture so that people at all levels, the top, the bottom, and particularly the middle, where operations are created, to make sure that they don't just work for the company, but they work for the customer.
One way we can create a customer-committed culture is to shift our thinking from silos to journeys. Our coworkers can no longer see their role aligned with a particular business function, as most do today. They must see their role in a broader context, recognizing their influence along the full journey. Today, we tend to pass the customer around. Sales organization will sell the product and pass them off. To create a customer-committed culture, we must stop passing the customer and instead surround the customer throughout their journey. Now, when we talk about journeys, it's common for people to think we're talking about journey mapping, and that's a small part of it. But what we're really talking about is a mindset. It's taking a look at the activities we're doing today and considering a different lens. For example, it's not about collecting feedback about individual departments. We don't want to evaluate the services organization. We really want to understand how well we're supporting customers when they have a problem. It's about sharing insights along journey stages, having metrics and dashboards that show customer intelligence at each step of their journey, and using that intelligence to prioritize improvements along the journey stages, creating action plans with identified and measurable success metrics for each journey stage, and sharing updates and communications with both employees and customers. Journey thinking also aligns with our third recommendation, which is to rethink how we organize our customer experience teams and efforts. Executive leadership remains critical, of course, but to accelerate our pace of change, we may need more than one executive sponsor. We need a team of executives engaged with us in improving the experience. We also need CX leadership to set the strategy and priorities. Then we organize and engage journey teams, which are accountable for the customer experience in that journey phase. This team should also have an executive sponsor, resources dedicated to project execution, and resources dedicated to the people side of change.
The fourth area is all about how we gather and use customer intelligence in our organizations. Now, back in 2013, we took a close look at this, and this is actually one area that we saw some progress, and that is how companies gather customer experience. For years, the gathering of insights has largely depended on surveys, but we're seeing more and more companies broaden that and use all the different inputs that they get from customers. But then, we still have progress to make in that area, and as well, we need to deliver that to people throughout the organization so they can put it to use. Now, it has to be relevant. It has to be, presented to them in a timely information. It has to be in a format which they can use. But our research has shown that there is a great hunger for this type of information. People want it so that they can do their jobs better. And our fifth area is making CX innovation a priority. Now, when we think of innovation, we often think of new products or new features, and that's not really what I'm referring to here. I'm talking about innovating the experience itself. So when Leslie, talks about Silver Car and how you can rent a car completely through your phone, even to the point where that's what gets you into the car, that's innovating the experience. When Hilton Hotels comes up with an app where you can select your room and bypass the registration desk, that's innovating the experience. And as the statistic on the screen shows, not enough CX professionals are involved in designing those ideal experiences. Most likely, they are involved in kind of the break-fix model. They're fixing the things that aren't right, and that's equally important. But in addition to that, they have to help create those breakthrough experiences that are going to really give their company a competitive advantage. So, recapping the 5 areas, focusing on culture, going from silos to journeys, changing how we organize CX, taking advantage of customer intelligence and making CX innovation a priority. Again, big changes, not easy, but necessary at this point. Now, we've shared this information with a number of different audiences, and we get some common questions. And so I thought I would throw out a couple of the most common ones, and we'll kind of try to answer them ourselves. But one that comes up, Leslie, even though we give kind of these 5 sweeping recommendations, people are saying, where do I start? What do I action first? And what has been your response to that?
Well, I'd start by saying that while 2020 is around the corner, we're not going to be done when it arrives. So I would use it as a good milestone for creating a sense of urgency. And then really, we need to focus a lot more on what customers want, which is personalization, ease, and speed. I recommend pick one and go after it. Look at the journey from the customer's perspective and think about how to make it more personalized, easier, faster. Whichever one you choose, start by defining how that customer expectation shows up in your business today, and create your customer experience promises for what it will look like in the future. And don't just think incrementally, consider transformative changes and go for it. Now, Pat, another question that we hear often is, has anything changed from the first report to the second? Can you share with us what we've seen?
Yeah, the reports were pretty consistent. The one thing that kind of stands out when I think back on it is in the first report, we focused a lot on seamless communication. So companies, customers were saying they want this seamless communication. They want to communicate the way they want to communicate, whether it's phone, email, text, chat, whatever. And companies need to be prepared for all those different avenues. And it is an area that our research shows that there's been some progress. And I think that's a good point that we're seeing that kind of progress. So I got one more for you, and I'm thinking back to the chart of how customer experience is outpacing things like product and price and how we differentiate. Yeah. I mean, people have challenged us on that. Do you see it as really being true?
Well, the short answer is yes. We continue to see companies looking to create a competitive advantage by focusing on the experiences that they deliver to customers. And it's not just coming from customer experience professionals. Last year, we studied CEO perceptions of customer experience, and they're saying the same thing. Their input, CEOs overwhelmingly say that the experience is the most effective way to differentiate. Others can replicate the product, yes, but they can't replicate the experience. About your questions, we'd love to hear from you. We hope that you'll take a time to email us any questions or comments that you have based on this information. And we also hope you'll take advantage of this opportunity to receive a copy of the latest Customers 2020 report. You can visit walkerinfo.com/customers2020 and enter the code COMP2020PROGRESS to download a complimentary copy of the report. Thank you for joining today, and thanks to Qualtrics for hosting this presentation.
Thanks to you, Pat and Leslie, for your time. That's an awesome report, and we appreciate all of your insights there. And thank you to all of our audience for joining today. Tune in for the rest of Experience Week for more great content.